Hi everyone, it's Chris. Welcome to my parlour. I'm here with the spirits at the moment. I'm trying to contact the spirits, the spiritual realm. And I'm going to light my candle. I can't use incense at the moment because my son is home and he is allergic to incense. I'm just going to light the candle, asking the spirits to join us if they wish, that this is a safe place, that we are surrounded by white light. The spirits are safe, I'm safe, that whatever is shared here is between me and the universe. I have my skulls for protection. Also too, skulls are conduits and hold and share energy that comes through from the spirits. I'm going to ring the bell and allow the spirits to know that I am available to be spoken with, that they can share anything that they wish with me at the moment. I'm going to try and contact Elizabeth Short, who was born on July 29th, 1924 in Hyde Park, Boston, Massachusetts, and died January 15th, 1947, and was found at Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California, and she was 22 years of age when she was murdered. We know the name of the name that the journalists gave her. I'm trying to think of the right words here because it's quite an emotional and emotive reading for me, because I've always been interested in this case. I'm not going to go into all the details of her death and what the police found and things like that, because I just don't like to dwell on that. I'd rather dwell or try to contact Elizabeth Short to get the energy around her at the moment, and to sort of also, there are quite a few other women who I wanted to mention in this video who are also partially connected to this case here. Elizabeth Short was murdered, and she had been placed in the place where someone had found her. She was placed there after her murder, so she was transported there. She was murdered elsewhere. The media nicknamed her, and this is where it comes to her nickname, they nicknamed her the Black Dahlia. And also too, in the investigation and since then and everything else, her name has been demeaned so much that it just annoys me, it sickens me to think that this woman who cannot defend herself has been demeaned in such a way that even her death is even less of innovation than what's happened afterwards. Now, her murder also reminds me very much of Jack the Ripper. Not that this was the Jack the Ripper, of course, because of the dates 1947. Jack the Ripper had passed away by then, more than likely. But it has the same sort of ideas, because the murderer contacted what was it? The Examiner, Los Angeles Examiner, and sent them letters, and items of hers were found. So it's sort of, I don't know. I'm sensing too that the burial site would have been a burial site where Elizabeth had been found, had been largely undeveloped at that time, and there were footprint or heel print, and a a sack of bloody watered cement. So I'm thinking perhaps being undeveloped that the murderer, I think there may have been one or two in cooperation here, that's what my feeling at the moment, that they would have buried her and disposed of her body before anyone else had found it. But I don't know, I'm going to just share one part of it, that had been severed in half. And I don't know whether that was because some sort of fetish of the murderer, or for transportation purposes, easier to bury a body that is in pieces rather than whole, and easier to transport. One person could have carried one part of her, one person could have carried the other. Could have happened that way as well. So that's a possibility that there were two involved. And a heel print. That, I don't know whether that indicates a heel print as in a woman's high heel shoe or a man's heel. They didn't say a footprint, a shoe print, they said a heel print. So if there's a woman involved in it, it's a possibility. The woman could have been Elizabeth's connection to the murderer. Elizabeth wanted to be an actress in Hollywood. So a woman could have been her connection to the murderer, saying that perhaps she could have been Elizabeth's agent, or connected to her agent somehow, and the murderer had contacted and said that they wanted a woman to apply for this position of a job, of an acting job, at this address. I think that could have been something like that as well. I'm just thinking that the media weren't very nice about Elizabeth. They concocted a lot of stories about her which have been proven to be untrue, and they just demeaned her so much in their stories. And there's been so many people who have benefited from her death. There have been movies, there have been books, everything related to the Black Dahlia, and there's a bit of a consensus about who actually named her the Black Dahlia, but it's mostly, I think, the journalists. So, but after her murder, the Los Angeles Examiner received a phone call on January the 21st, saying that they had items of hers and that they would be given to the police, or be given to the Examiner as evidence that this person murdered her, and they assumed it was from the murderer. So 3 days later, items were given to the Los Angeles Examiner, and the name Mark Hansen was brought forward because his name was on a notebook that was given, and so they said, here it is, Dahlia's belongings. And on March 14th, a suicide note was found in a shoe in a pile of clothes at the ocean's edge of Breeze Avenue, Vienna. But no one knew who they belonged to, or whether or not it was an actual suicide, because they said that they could not live with the murder of what they committed, and they were too much of a coward to get themselves in, so they killed themselves. But I don't know, because no body was found, and no one knows who the owner of those clothes were. And then on January 26th, another letter was received by the Examiner, and it said that the killer was handing himself in, and on January 29th at 10 a.m. and the police went to their rendezvous point, but no one turned up. But then later a letter arrived at 1 p.m. stating that the Dahlia killing was justified. So, and many women were murdered in similar circumstances, but not quite the same, not so violently. All murder is violent, of course, but not the same sort of signature that this murderer had for Elizabeth Short. So there's murdered women between 1947 and 1949. I'm going to talk about them too, because it's very important to mention everyone that's involved with Elizabeth Short. I'm not saying that she was part of the murderer's rampage or not, but I think hers was a separate one indeed, because it was so violent and so specific about what happened to her. But 1947 to 1949, there were a lot of unsolved murders of women, and there's quite a few of them. So I'm going to go through with them. So in 1943, Aura Elizabeth Murray was murdered. 1944, Georgette Bodorf. She was murdered. Now, she worked with Elizabeth Short, but there's a bit of conjecture about whether or not she did, at the Hollywood canteen. And so she may have been in contact with Elizabeth Short at some time or another. Whether or not their murders were related, they don't know, but they're thinking that perhaps these murders were. But they're not too sure whether Elizabeth actually worked at the Hollywood canteen. Bit of conjecture there, but a connection nonetheless, isn't it, really? 1947, Jean Nettie French was murdered, unsolved. 1947, Evelyn Winters, unsolved. Dorothy Ella Montgomery, unsolved. Laura Eliza Telsted. I have to get my thing in. Trelstad. She was murdered as well. No evidence, no one to be blamed. Rosenda Josephine Mondragon. Lillian Dominguez. She was died as well. I'm sorry about all these names. I'm sure that the souls of these women will forgive me for not getting their names correctly, but I've just Dominguez, yes. So what's it? Go through it again. Evelyn Winters, Jean Nettie French was 1947. She was murdered. 1943, Aura Elizabeth Murray. 1944, Georgette Bodorf. 1947, Dorothy Ella Montgomery. Laura Eliza Trelstad. Rosenda Josephine Mondragon. Lillian Dominguez. 1948, Gladys Eugenia Kern. 1949, Louise Margaret Springer, Mimi Boomhauer, and Jean Spangler. They all died in the same sort of time frame. Various ways of being murdered, but they wonder whether or not they are connected, because there were letters left by a few murderers claiming to be the murderer, the killer of some of these women. So, but I'm going to try and contact Elizabeth Short at the moment and see what might be happening for her, see if she has settled or is still seeking justice for her murder. Just want to get the energy around her at the moment. Please visit me if you want to, Elizabeth. She was an inspiring actress. I have the feeling that she was coerced under false pretenses to meet with this man, or this partnership. I don't know. I can't imagine a woman doing the murder. It was just so gross. I won't go into details. I read some of the details and it freaked me out, and I can't bear to talk about it. But I can't imagine a woman doing that to any other person. But she may have lured Elizabeth to her death, and she may have helped dispose of her body. I think that is coming through for me at the moment. So Elizabeth was told that there would be a part for her. She wanted to come for an audition. She turned up and whammy, she got murdered. Now, I think the murderer would have said something like, Elizabeth, you're going to be famous. You're going to be more famous than you ever could ever realize if you accept this part. And my golly, she's been famous ever since. There's a lot of talk about her, but all these other women died as well. And why was Elizabeth chosen to be the martyr in this connection with this killer? Whether or not he killed all the other women, I'm not too sure, but they're all killed in the same sort of area. They weren't killed miles and miles apart, or states apart. They were killed in the same specific area over the years. So Elizabeth Short certainly became famous, and that's what this murderer promised her. And I think he got his jollies out of the whole thing, very much like Jack the Ripper would have got his jollies by taunting the police and saying, hey, you can't catch me, virtually. There have been a lot of people saying that they were the murderer. About 500, I think the article said, and even people confessing who weren't even born yet. So there's a lot of people out there who want to be part of the Black Dahlia legacy, and that's what it is, because her death has spawned a lot of movies, books, articles, ever since 1947, when Elizabeth Short passed away. She was only 22 years old, trying to make it big in Hollywood. And she certainly got her name up in lights, didn't she? But they're calling her the Black Dahlia, so her name is not even registered as who she is. So she's been giving a nickname, which is, I think, is rather nasty. I don't do this professionally. This is not something that I do. This is just something that's been part of, I don't know, just been part of me for a long time. I mean, she's 100 years old. She is 100 years. She was 100 years old last year. Elizabeth Short would have been 100 years old. So her killer is long gone too. There's never really going to be any justice for her. We have the Ace of Hearts here. Whatever whatever the journalists wanted to say about her, whatever anyone wanted to say about her, she had a gentle heart. She was an honest and, yeah, sure, she may have wanted to go out there and have fun. She was seen in a lot of the nightclubs, and she liked to wear sheer black clothing. Hey, it's no different to today, is it? Girls like to go clubbing. She's only 22 years old. She wanted to go out clubbing. She wanted to probably be seen in the area. Hey, look at me. I'm willing to work. I'm willing to do whatever it is necessary to be an actress. But to go out meeting people, to rub shoulders with the people in the know, sure, that's what she would have done, and she would have gone out and had fun. But to call her all of these, to put a label on her, that was, I think, out of line for anybody to do, for someone who was dead, who did not even know who she was. I don't think she had that many friends that she could confide in. But I think she had a heart of gold. And whoever she murdered her knew that. Maybe she did lead men on and sort of she flirted with them probably, but that doesn't go to necessarily mean anyone goes out and murders her, except for the man who did, and a very sick man, very sick individual. Maybe he did get spurned by her, got rejected once too often, and used this ploy to get her to an audition to murder her and do whatever else he did to her, which is horrendous. To write that note and saying that her murder was what did I say? Her murder was justified. The Dahlia killing was justified, and even then he used the nickname Dahlia rather than her real name. So maybe he wanted some fame as well, and he got fame, didn't he? Yes, it was through work. It was through her work, through her skills as an actress, that got her into the clutches of the murderer. Got her into his presence so he could murder her. It was through her acting, through her work. Nothing to do with her personal life, nothing to do with anything else. He wanted to be famous, and he was going to tell her that she was going to be famous too. And my golly, she was, but not for what she wanted. Not in the movies, that's for sure. Well, that was a good way of getting her to come to him, wasn't it? Instead of going out there to abduct her or murder her in her own home, he made a ruse, come into this audition. It's in the right sort of place. He could murder her and get away with it. And he has got away with it all this time. Quite a few people have been under suspicion. I haven't mentioned them because I don't want them to be acknowledged any more than they have been already, but you can certainly find that online. They're saying that perhaps the murderer had some sort of knowledge of anatomy. I don't think it takes much to sever someone in half, but there you go. Jack the Ripper, the same thing. He had supposedly had knowledge of medicine, but of anatomy. Maybe she was the victim of a snuff movie. It's possible too. She would have screamed. She would have known that she was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and something bad was going to happen to her. The murderer hit her over the head. She died of brain hemorrhage. Subdural have some hemorrhage. She died of a hemorrhage anyway. That was the cause of death, mainly because she was cut in half when she was already dead. I think that's to be disposed of, make disposal easier. Why the skin was taken, I don't know. That is an interesting thing. I'm not too sure why that was taken. Nothing other things nasty had happened to her. It was rather cruel, but yeah, she was struck over the head. So I think that would have been her demise. So maybe, hopefully, she didn't suffer all that much, except for the fear. Please, Elizabeth, can you talk to me? Talk me through some of this. This is the man involved. He cold and calculating. Above the law. He could get away with it. and he did. He could taunt the police, he could taunt the public, he could talk the journalists. He was just as famous as Elizabeth was, but in the nastiest possible way. But he was someone that she knew. He was, he gave himself a powerful persona. He may even have been really legitimately in the entertainment area. He may legitimately have been searching for stars in the past. But Elizabeth perhaps could have unknowingly, unwittingly, willingly, who knows, denied him his advances in other areas when he had known her before. So maybe he was out for revenge, and I think he cut her in half for disposal reasons, but the rest of it, oh, he must have been really, really mad. If I can't have you alive, I'll have you dead. And he sort of, I don't know, it's horrible to think about. What else happened to Elizabeth? What's happening here? Oh. It happened very quickly, and as I say, there were, I think perhaps there were more than one, more than two. The woman that had the first contact, I don't know whether or not she knew what was going to be happening. The man that wanted Elizabeth, whether or not he wanted to cut her in half, whether he was the one or this one. This one had a fiery temper. He was fast acting, fast talking, just wanted things done. He wasn't going to muck around with this one. She was dead. She was no use anymore. They couldn't do anything else with her. What else were they going to do with her but dispose of her? They sort of couldn't even have fun with her. They couldn't enjoy her somehow. Oh, it's rather creepy. And she died. This is not necessarily the death card, but it's certainly indicating that she died, I think, fairly quickly. She screamed, she struggled. Why they wanted the skin, I don't know. But she certainly died. What else is happening, Elizabeth? What else happened? Are you connected with everybody else, or are you a separate murder by a separate individual? She was complete. She was this murderer's only victim. The others were not related to her. She was her own containment. And again, she's naked here. She was a victim on her own. This was entirely one murder by this individual who wanted to be famous and who didn't get what they wanted, and so they taunted the police, taunting the public. Another man. But he comes with hope. The police detective, maybe, because this person here, as a personality, is steadfast and reliable and meticulous. And I think he held out hope that there would be an answer, but after so many years, nothing turned up. So many people took this murder and ran with it and made up stories about it and wanted to become part of the story, wanted to become part of the legacy that was and still is the Black Dahlia. and Elizabeth's name has been disgraced and demoralized, and there's no justice for her. But this guy here was hoping, has never ever given up hope. He's gone now. A lot of people have given up their family members and saying, hey, I know who did it. It's one of my family members. It's my father. It's my uncle. It's someone that I know. And but they've all come to naught. So no one actually knows who did it. But I think it was someone, actually, who was quite famous at the time, or did have access to Hollywood, did have access to that sort of place where Elizabeth could have gone for an audition, and you know, he could have faked that quite easily, because he was very articulate. He was very did have money. He had influence. And he could have faked being a producer. He could have faked being a casting agent, and had access to others who would, would help him and get the job over and done with quite quickly. I think he wanted to have time with her. He wanted to make her suffer for some reason, but her death, I think, was quite quick. And I think it was, the dismemberment was for... but the cut on the face into the smile shape, I don't know why that was here. Maybe he says, well, come and have fun now. You've had fun at my expense, so I'm going to have fun at your expense, and I'm going to make this work for me. I'm going to become famous in a way that you never will. But that was his ploy to get her there, that she's going to be more famous than she'd ever be in her entire life. And but he was going to have fun at her expense, and the cut on her face was him saying, hey, you've had enough fun at my expense. Maybe she did laugh at him, and maybe she did say, look, you're nowhere near my league. I don't want you. She was quite a pretty woman. She I don't know. I really don't know. The sun comes out. She just feels satisfied that perhaps I contacted her. I tried to get the truth, and in my vision, in her vision, and in the vision of the cards, this is the truth. This is what happened, what really happened. And she hopes that somewhere along the track, her story will be the one of truth, and not one that's been made up and sullied her name. Sure, she may have been a party girl, but who wouldn't have been a party girl back in the 40s in Hollywood, and 22 years old, looking to be famous, looking to get into the acting career, and rubbing shoulders with those in the know? Who wouldn't be confident and want to appear to be something special, something different? So she wore sheer black clothes. Does that make her anything less than a 22-year-old woman trying to make it in the world? I think that's all that she wants to be known about her, to be out there. So that's what I'm doing at the moment, to get people to understand that she was just an ordinary 22-year-old trying to make it in Hollywood. Oh, you got the death card. Oh my God, right on the bottom, you got the death card. This is what happened to her, the death of her dreams, with her physical death. There's the woman looking away. Here's the man pleading with death too, perhaps. Here she might be lying there. Someone holds the key to this. Someone really knows still. The can't be just have dropped off the face of the earth. Someone must know who he is, who they are, what really happened. But of course, they're all dead now. This wasn't a young person. This was a person well established in his career, well established in society. He wasn't anything under 35, 40 perhaps. So this was a long time ago, 70 years ago. So 75 years, 78 years. He'd be well and truly gone by now. Well and truly gone, 1947 to now. Oh my God, he would have been gone. But the story lives on. But the story is not Elizabeth Short. This is the story that the media has taken and run with and has gained profit from. This woman here, she's a woman. She was Elizabeth Short. She was born on July 29th, 1924. She was 22 years old. She deserved more of a life. She doesn't need her name to be led into this story, you know. And I think it's really important that her life be told in a way that is really important to be told. So I don't know whether to take any more cards out or not. I might just, well, we know what happened. Let's find out a little bit more about Elizabeth Short, shall we? Because after all of this, no one really knows Elizabeth Short. No one knows what happened to her between then and that time. So before that murder, what was she like? What did she like to do? No one knows. Her mum said she won a beauty contest, and yeah, I would agree with she would have. She was quite an attractive woman, but she doesn't deserve the demoralising comments that people made, the innuendo that people made up, because most of it, even that new book, I don't know what the name of it is now, that was, the police said was 23% fact and about 50% made up, or unfactual and 50% made up. So most of it was rubbish. It wasn't true, because he just wanted to make money. No one knows her life story. No one knows the time between when I think she disappeared for a bit, they say, but then no one knows what she did between that time and the murder. No one knows, because no one's around now to say, hey, look, this is what happened. She didn't write and leave a diary. She didn't leave a journal. She left names in her bag. There were lots of names in her bag, and in that piece of information that the killer had sent in, there was a lot of information there. Now, whether or not those leads were revealed to be nothing, they didn't lead anywhere, but let's find a little bit more about Elizabeth herself. Elizabeth, can you tell me a bit more about yourself? She was a very confident woman. She wanted things to happen. She wanted things to happen straight away, and she went to Hollywood thinking, oh, I won a beauty contest. I know I'm attractive. I know that I can do this. I know that this is my dream. And she wanted to go out there and make it happen. She had enthusiasm. She had ambition. She just wanted to get out there and be a famous actress. She wanted to break into the acting world and just become this diva. She wanted to become a diva. And at 22, who hasn't got that confidence out there in Hollywood? She hadn't been out there long enough, perhaps, to become disillusioned just yet. And she thought this was her big break. And with this man who ended up murdering her, she thought this was her break. She didn't realise what was going to happen to him, but so she had a good heart. She had a good heart, and she wanted to break into the the entertainment area. She wanted love too. She was open to receiving love, but she wasn't about to give that away to anybody. So when this guy come along and made this pass at her, no way, she wasn't going to give in to him. She didn't love him. She wasn't the one that's going to get into her acting career on the couch. She wanted to be out there, but she wanted love. She wanted that genuine affection, but she wasn't going to give it away. No way. She wasn't going to give it away. She had a kind heart, but she wasn't going to advance in her career on the couch. But here he was, pouting success to her. He came on his knight in like a knight in shining armor, purporting success for her. Come with me and I'll show you success. Come with me and I'll show you success. But she wasn't going to sleep with him to get it. But he fooled her in the end by sort of dragging her into it and bringing her into that situation where he would be able to have his way. And I don't know whether or not he meant to murder her. I don't know whatever else that meant. The other things that he did to her, I don't know why. But hopefully she was. See, here she is. She's the Queen of Cups. She had. Maybe she did have a romantic idea. Maybe she was thinking, or it was going to be easy to break into Hollywood. Maybe she was a little bit disillusioned. She was 22 years old. Maybe she did have high ideals, but he took her innocence. He took her. Maybe she did make some mistakes. Maybe she did step on a few toes, and maybe she did, I don't know, give men the idea that, flirting was going to lead them somewhere. Maybe she was a bit idealistic, but she wore a heart on her sleeve, perhaps. Oh, Elizabeth, what else did you do? There was something about her, though, that nobody knows and nobody ever will. And no one's ever going to know what really happened to her. There's a lot going on in her own private life, and what happened during her murder, no one is ever going to know, because there's no one around now to question, to get their facts. Unless it's written down somewhere, no one's going to know what really happened to her, or what really happened in her life, really. She was very secretive about her personal life. She was living the Hollywood dream, but she had left her past behind. There's a lot about in her past that even she's not going to go to admit to me. She's saying she may have, her honest opinion of herself is that she was honest, and she did mean to carry forth with that, and she didn't want to betray anybody or do anything untoward to gain herself a position in Hollywood. But perhaps there was part of her that she is not even going to tell me, and maybe that's what led her to being murdered. She had all these good intentions, but something did happen that she held to herself. There's something about her that, well, she did something that led to her death, and what considered the killer had said it was justified. So maybe there was something that perhaps had happened at one point or another that had led to her undoing, her death. But honestly, she was, all intents and purposes, a lovely woman. But she'd been called to judgment. This was her judgment call when she met up with her killer. He had plans for her. I do still believe that she was duped into meeting up with him, in the guise of an audition, but it was her judgment day. And it was a judgment day to pay for whatever she had done. It was like saying, hey, look, this is what's going to happen because you did this. So she wasn't as innocent, perhaps, as she made out. I don't know what she did, but it was certainly not something that she should have done, and not to this person or this organisation even. There could have been an organisation, perhaps, because I said there were more than one person who had committed the murder. But it's an organisation here. This is Hollywood we're talking about. There are people now, like Gene Hackman, who has died, and said there's stories in Hollywood that he's kept, and perhaps he went to his death not revealing. So here there's a lot of things going on in Hollywood. Back in the 40s, it was, I don't know, but she did something, and she paid the ultimate price for that. And she was judged. She was judged rather harshly by the head of the organisation. I think it was an organisational hit. I don't know. It's what's coming through for me now after getting these cards, after talking to Elizabeth. She knew too much. She knew too much. She paid the ultimate price for knowing too much. Whether or not she was trying to sneak away with this information. She was trying to sneak away from this information. Yes. There's a group of people. There's an organisation. They were all working together. She was not part of the organisation, but she knew something about the organisation. She had said no to the wrong person, perhaps. Maybe she did brush off his advances. He really annoyed him. And the organisation she knew about, maybe she did. Maybe they were lovers. And at that time she found out some information about him as an individual, him as part of this organisation that had secrets. She wanted to get out. Maybe it was the Scientology, some sort of organisation like that. I don't know how long Scientology has been around. I don't know. But she wanted to get out. Maybe they were lovers. That's what this is coming up for. But she was in love. She was really, really in love. She saw this as love. She wasn't, so she didn't want to advance her career on the couch. But perhaps they were lovers. Perhaps they were lovers. She came with ideals that she really did not know what was going on. All this is getting deep. I don't know what else we can come up with, but I do believe there was an organisation in Hollywood, and probably still is. Ooh. What else, Elizabeth? What can you tell me? What else is happening here? Yes, she wanted to leave. She wanted out. She wasn't going to put up with this anymore. She wanted to take those secrets with her. I think she would have taken them to a grave. She wouldn't never have shared them with anyone, I don't think. She just wanted out. She just didn't want to be there anymore. She didn't want to be under this umbrella anymore, suffering under this regime of controlling men who controlled the women in Hollywood. I don't know whether the other murders are part of. I think they're all different. They're all separate. This is definitely separate. As I said, she was showed us the world card. She said that she was separate, that this murder was specifically hers and not related to anybody else. There was a lot of delusion, and there still is a lot of delusion in Hollywood. and women go there, men go there, doesn't matter who. Young women, and especially in the 40s, came into Hollywood thinking, oh, it's going to be my big break. This is where I'm going to become a famous actress. But there's a lot of delusion. And you can get caught up in corruption. You can get so easily caught up in corruption. And she was. Whoever she mixed with was corrupt. Makes me wonder whether or not her panache for black see-through materials which she wore were part of her persona or part of what the organisation wanted her to do, wanted her to participate in. Maybe it wasn't hers after all. A lot of drinking, a lot of drugs went on, but not happy times. This was definitely not happy times, but there was a lot of drinking and drugs to make people happy, to make people think that they have hit the jackpot, that they were in the right place. The gold veneer of Hollywood at the time. Take enough drugs, drink enough, and you would think you were happy. But of course Elizabeth wasn't. And then maybe that smile, supposed cut in her face to make it look like she was grinning, maybe that was supposed to be part of it. You're supposed to be happy, Elizabeth. Be happy with whatever it is it wants. Oh, it's sad. She's wanted to get away. She could see her way out, but it was too late. She had to leave a lot behind, but she's prepared to do that. She was prepared to go forth, but she was waiting for something. I don't know what she was waiting for, or why she wanted to wait, or maybe she was just, it was just too late. But she could see a way out. But the effort to move forward was just too late. It was too late. So I think we've come to the idea now of what happened to her, or why she was the victim, and perhaps the taunting of the examiner, the taunting of the police, and the messages to the examiner were this idea here of, you know, we're too smart, don't delve into us, we're a powerful organisation, and we can bring you down just as easily as anyone. And taunting them to say, well, hey, and maybe these other women were a cover-up, a genuine cover-up, saying, taking the pressure off whoever murdered Elizabeth, so no one would look into the actual workings of Hollywood and what went on behind closed doors. What went beyond closed doors. The confidence the women portrayed was just for the camera. Underneath, they were just ordinary women trying to survive, trying to pretend to be who they were not, trying to pretend to be others, to gain their confidence, to try and be confident, to look beautiful all the time, to be at the whim of these men, to do whatever they wanted to do with these women. They were not their own women anymore. They lost their confidence. They were part of the organisation that, under the guise of Hollywood. I think I might leave it there because it's getting a bit deep, and I don't want to get into the politics of all of this. I don't want to get murdered. So, yeah, what do you think, guys? Do you think this might be possible? Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth. I want to let you go now because it's getting a bit heavy. And please understand, I understand your situation. I am not going to judge you. You've been judged, and the ultimate payment was your murder. But you are famous as your producer friend said you would be, but unfortunately other people have muscled in on that and made a fortune themselves at your expense, and I don't think that's particularly good. So thank you, Elizabeth. I wish you your soul peace, and thank you for coming to chat with me and telling me the story. I know deep down that you were a decent young woman who got corrupted in Hollywood and met up with the wrong crowd and got caught up in something that no young woman should ever be caught up in. Some women are just cannot do that because their moral standing will not allow them to do that. So thank you, Elizabeth, for sharing this with me. I'll let you go now. Blew out the candle. The end of the session. So thank you, everyone, for joining me. I hope that was interesting for you. I'm sorry to have butchered all those names of those poor women that were also murdered, I think, in the guise of trying to cover up, which is really unfair. But so thank you very much, and until next time, everyone, so many blessings.